basically I did all the errands and all the work on a production that no one else really wanted to do, and just made myself useful, from wearing secret filming equipment to doing basic research to driving people around, and very quickly gained an understanding of how that kind of television is made. And I guess from joining London Weekend Television to actually getting my first paid contract as a researcher, it probably took me about 3 months.
In those days there was 6 months of training, 8 weeks, very intensive theoretical and practical training, then 2 months at Broadcasting House and 2 months at Bush House on the job working on radio programmes.
Got involved with hospital radio, then community radio, found a job in Wardour Street working in a transfer bay for a music publishing company, doing tapes to send out to clients. Worked my way up reasonably quickly into working in the recording studio, got involved with bands, and then started to work on some really cool things with bands, getting involved with images, and it just developed into mixing, and now it's grown into this building we're in today.
I can honestly say that in my whole career I've had a single day of training, which was in about 1994 or something like that, when I got on a presentation training course. Everything else, I suppose in the manner of an apprenticeship, I've learnt sitting by somebody else who could do it very well.
Well, I joined the BBC in 1961 when everything was on film, and I was a trainee, and they taught us the nuts and bolts of the business, and the rest of it you picked up as you went along.
We had 3-month stints in different parts of the BBC, from national to regional newsrooms to current affairs outfits. And that was a great training, and I was lucky to have it.
In terms of training to be a producer or a director, I don't think that I advocate formal training programs for that. I think what's potentially much more useful is that production companies and places like the BBC offer a kind of supervised way of working, so people can have hands-on experience at a junior level. They're working with experienced people, but it's not a separate training program, because I think that training never really prepares you for the reality of production, which is far more complex.
Anybody can use a Pro Tools, anybody can learn to use a mixing console. That's relatively easy. The hard thing to learn is how to be in an environment, in a studio environment. It's how to deal with the director. The director and the producer are arguing, you need to get something finished. How do you actually say, excuse me fellas, we've got to crack on here? It's those skills that are hard to learn, and it's those skills that young people need our help learning.
In my day we just came in and then we were given the training for a long time. Now they want people who can just come in and do the job. So what people are generally having to do is to be much more vocational in their choice of degree or equivalent. I think the big problem is that they're largely expected to do it themselves, and when they're coming into maybe their first work experience will be in a smaller studio, perhaps with one other engineer, and they'll be expected to pick up all their knowledge from that one person. And however good that person is, it's going to have a fairly limited view.
I think that flexibility actually is the main thing there, because people are at different stages of their careers, and some people are both reporters now and producers increasingly, so they need a bespoke sort of training which can set them up for the world in which they are operating.
The most important training actually is putting a program together, because that's what it's all about. And the way you learn that is by observing people making programs, and the way you learn that is by being an assistant. And this you experience through being in a cutting room watching a number of people create a program. You don't do it on a 2-day course on learning buttons, and I think that is very valuable, and I'm very sad to see that these days assistants are not used on more and more programs.
We, as experienced producers, directors, writers, executive producers or whatever, we have to help. Now, I've been allowed at times by broadcasters who I've had to persuade very hard to say that person A should now be allowed to direct a film. And I've asked them to take it on trust and me on trust. And the deal is that I have to hold that person's hand, which I'm very happy to do. And it can be a lot of hand-holding. and it can be a lot of time. It's way more beyond time than is refunded through the executive producer fee. But I think that is something that we have no choice but to do, because there aren't really any other mechanisms. And anyway, at the end, you do actually learn best by doing it for real.
In terms of the future, the onus is obviously on broadcasters and production companies to make sure that they have adequate provision for people at entry level, that they're not abusing the system, they're not making people do meaningless tasks and making people work too hard in an area they're not learning anything. There's a quid pro quo when you do work experience. You work hard for a production, but you also in return get some kind of on-the-job training. It's not training, official training, it's experience, and that's the kind of training that you need in television.
A great thing would be if everybody could get together, basically, right across the industry. The BBC is no longer the kind of the trainer for everybody. It just doesn't provide that kind of training. It can't afford to. So it'd be good if there was some kind of central organisation through which everyone could get together and we could learn everything we need right across the industry.
We all have to wise up to the fact that we can't just bring people in just to generate extra bodies in the building. You need to bring people in, make them useful quite quickly, absolutely, because we all run, businesses. But we really do, we must be obliged to train them correctly, to mentor them. They've got to feel safe, they've got to want to stay in the business. No one leaves this company unless they, move to Australia. But I think that's really cool, and they just develop real craftsmanship. And I'm very proud of all the people we've brought through the system here.